My name is Ted, and one day I'll be dead. Yo, 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 yo. Welcome to that 80s show, Dori.
Dude, on a day like today, that feels like it could be my spirit animal song, like my favorite song. Like, I'd forgotten how great that song is. Oh, man. I love it. I love it so much.
Your spirit animal could be a horse called Trigger, of course.
Of course.
Boys don't cry. I want to be a cowboy. For those listening on the podcast, go back, stop, listen to that song, get into our vibe, carry on listening. I think that's the best advice we can give you.
I mean, can we just say how that song didn't sound 80s in the 80s, still doesn't really sound 80s. That is a timeless track.
It is. And despite it being about cowboys, and cowboys, as we know, no longer exist. Their heyday was in the 1980s.
Maybe that's why it hasn't dated. That's why it hasn't dated. Also, was that a one-hit wonder? Did they have any other songs?
Yes, it has to be. Has to be. There's no way Boys Don't Cry had another song. Had to be.
I can't think of a single one, so it has to be.
No, we're probably missing out
man.
a very obvious one. Listen, but Dori and I, just before we started the show, we said, we use very extreme language when it comes to work. Our work parlance is very. Dori's like, "I'll join us. I got to put out a fire." I was like, we say it all the time. Like, what's a fire? I got to send a few emails. Have you ever put out a fire?
Not literally. I am not a fire lady.
Right.
Although it sounds like fun,
Oh,
I
no
always used
way.
to want
It
to
sounds like.
go down the pole.
Oh, all right. Okay. Well, let's get into that.
That was a perfectly innocent statement that you are misinterpreting, I think.
So, Dori sent me something earlier this week. Said we got to talk about this on the show. It was a meme of a kid waking up in a bed. It looks like it's a very 80s looking room. Okay, is it from any movie? I didn't recognize it instantly.
It might be. I didn't recognize it either. It looks like it could be a scene out of like maybe the Wonder Years or something like that. I don't know. Or
Something like that.
I don't know.
Kid waking up.
Something like that.
Well, Wonder Years was set in the 50s, but very 80s looking room.
Oh, that's true.
And it said, imagine you wake up in the 80s. What's the first thing you do? Story said, we gotta explore this topic, right?
Right.
Now, I got a few things to ask you. I wake up in the 80s. Have I time traveled? So have I time traveled, right? So I know what's
because
coming.
Are you a kid or are you your age now? And this is exactly like there would be very different things that I would do depending on how old I am when I wake up in the 80s.
Because so have you bigged it? Have you have you body swapped it, right? So it's like, obviously, if I wake up now, if I wake up in the 80s with the knowledge I have now, I'm buying 80s Apple stock straight away. I'm buying Apple stock. Apple was around in the 80s. That's what I'm doing straight up, because there was no Tesla. There was none of that. There was Apple. I'm buying Apple stock. Done. Okay. Then, because it's that other thing, there's that other meme that goes around. It goes, would you like to go back to being 6 years old, but with all the knowledge you have now, or get $10 million? And I take the dollars because I don't want to lose the people that I've had. So it's a very different thing when you have a family, right?
Yes.
So we're getting away from the point. Let's just take
getting
it
so serious. Oh my God.
we're overthinking it.
Yes.
Wake up in the 80s. What's the first thing I do? Make sure my Garbage Pail Kids are still okay. Well, where's my Garbage Pail Kids collection? Is it still there under my bed? Yes, it is. Awesome. Great. Right?
Would you stop the Garbage Pail Kids movie being made?
Never. I will never stop the movie. I got to say,
I know you love that movie.
Do you watch Sweet Tooth at all?
I do.
Netflix.
Totally up to date on it.
Right. So I can't help, okay, but look at those Sweet Tooth kids and go, you guys look like the Garbage Pail Kids. You guys,
no. Really?
Especially if you're up to date, there is a alligator kid, right? And I'm like, you are alligator. You are alligator from the Garbage Pail Kids. You're not even trying to hide it anymore.
I didn't even think of that. I didn't actually make the connection. But now that you mention it.
Exactly.
Oh, dear.
Exactly.
Oh, dear.
So
Okay.
in the 80s, first thing I'm doing, make sure Garbage Pail Kids are okay. Then I'm checking on what He-Mans, all my Thundercats, my He-Mans. I'm checking out my action figures, right?
Are you
These are
waking up
glorious.
in your original 80s bedroom? Hang on. You were like tiny in the 80s. You were like a baby.
I was in primary school. So I was born in 1980. So I was in primary school. So I was like real kid. And then I would go, so am I waking up in my childhood bedroom? Where am I waking up?
This is the question. Okay, let's assume you are waking up as a kid in your childhood bedroom, but you know where you've come from. So you were a kid, but you know everything that's coming for the next 40 years.
Am I going
30
back?
something years.
How long am I there for? A day. Till I go to sleep again.
It's a day.
I'm there for a day.
So your adult brain is in your kid body in your original home in the 80s.
Okay, my adult brain is in my kid's body in my original home in the 80s. I'm there. So I'm still checking my Garbage Pail Kids. I'm still checking out my action figures.
You're still buying Apple stock.
I'm buying Apple stock. I didn't even know how to. How do you even buy stock in the 80s?
Did you have pocket money? Yeah, did you have pocket money? You'd have to ask someone to help you.
I'd have to go open my Velcro wallet, the one that was I had the wallet around my arm. Did you ever have the wrist wallet?
And then you'd have to go, I know. And then you'd have to go to somewhere that had a computer.
God, can't I just
you'd
go
have
to
you'd have to find like a broker, like a dude in a suit.
Would someone at the perm bank be able to help me?
Yes.
I'd have to go to the perm bank and say, please help me buy some stocks. And knowing South Africa in the 80s, they'd buy me Apple's stock. It's like, I don't want fucking apples.
You'd have to go to Barclays Bank.
Barclays
or
Bank.
Perm Bank.
They were international.
Barclays.
No, Barclays.
No, Barclays became FNB, remember? But it was originally Barclays.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what had happened. But before that, I would have had a sneaky little game of Super Mario Brothers before school. Just a quick cheeky one level.
Right. Yeah.
What would I eat? What would I go eat? You know me, I loved my King Rats. I loved King Rats, the jelly sweets.
Yeah.
Had those. I'd buy me a Wix chewing gum stick for 15 cents.
Mm-hmm.
Buy another packet of Garbage Pail Kids, obviously. You know, so far, checking on my Garbage Pail Kids, checking my action figures, having a sneaky game of Super Mario Brothers first thing in the morning, it's not too dissimilar to most mornings waking up as a 43-year-old.
Exactly. You're not doing anything hugely. I was going to say you're not doing anything that different from when you were a kid, but I forgot. You're still a kid.
I'm doing it quicker as a kid. Right now, it's a little bit. I'm not making as many noises between the steps. You know, not much creaking. I'm definitely pumping up my LA gears. I'm definitely giving my LA gears a little pump. Just pumping those up. You know, I've got a lot of walking to do that day. Got to walk all the way to the Volkskas. Got to pump up my shoes.
Don't you have a skateboard?
I got a skateboard. Yes. And it was safe. Kids could go in the street. I'm skateboarding in the streets then.
Yeah.
So that's what I know. You wake up and you kiss every poster in your room first. Kiss them all good morning. That's the first thing.
I feel so exposed right now. I literally
you're sliding up and down poles.
I literally used to kiss the posters. Oh my God. I'm literally blushing.
Yes, I know.
I can't decide if I feel exposed or just seen. I feel seen.
Seen, Dori. How long have we known each other?
You really, really get me.
Exactly. How long have we known each other?
Oh, forever. It feels like we've known each other since the 80s, even though that is not the case.
That's not the case. So you've kissed all your posters. Next step.
I'm not going to go to school because why would I do that? Okay. I'm going to go to Smiley Blue.
Okay.
And I'm going to buy
your favorite store.
All the things that I never got to buy that I still to this day regret not buying. Specifically, the zebra print jacket that I used to see and want and just never got somehow. I don't know why. Well, I mean, I couldn't have all the things from Smiley Blue. I had limited access.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time I had money for the zebra print jacket, it was gone. And to this day, I remember it and I think wistfully about it. That and the shirt that had the Talking Heads lyrics on it. The lyrics from Road to Nowhere. That shirt I also wanted and I never got. Oh,
standing.
Those two things. But I mean, I would just go and buy also all the Lumo socks because I used to go and buy the Lumo socks and I would buy way more than I had because eventually those wore out and then you couldn't get them anymore. So I would buy so many extra pairs of Lumo socks so that I could continue wearing them into my 40s.
How many colors, though? How many colors did you wear at once? Because that was the thing. You wore 4 colors, rolled them down.
No, I used to wear, I think, 2. I would sometimes wear the pink and the green together.
Okay.
Yeah.
On one foot and on the other foot.
Blue.
That was good.
Yeah. No. They had to match. I couldn't have like one on one foot. I would put like the pink and then the blue over it on both feet. So
okay.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
And then where am I going for lunch, Paulo? We discussed it last week. Where am I going for lunch in the 80s? Of course,
you're definitely going to
Panburgers. I'm going to
Definitely going to Panburgers. Definitely going to Panburgers.
And I'll probably go and pick up some cigarette sweets at the cafe across the road.
Sneak around the corner, have a panini behind the cafe.
No, it's a spree.
Spritzer.
It's an
Esprit. Him and a spree.
And then I'll go home and watch Knight Rider. Or MacGyver. Or the A-Team.
Whatever's on that night.
Or Magnum. Whatever is on that night. Because I don't have a choice. I have to watch whatever is on that night.
Hopefully you land
on... The Facts of Life.
Hopefully you land on an English night. night.
I'll watch Miami Vice. I'll watch Miami Vice dubbed into Afrikaans. That was my childhood. I'll do it.
Even simulcast it? It depends how late 80s you've landed, right? Because
I mean, no, it's simulcast. But I mean, do I have the? Yeah, no, I'll make a plan because it's the 80s. I've got everything. I've got the half. I've got the Ghetto Blaster.
You got it all.
Yeah, I'll watch simulcast Miami Vice that night before I come back to the future.
That's some good stuff. Go to sleep and you're back today.
Yeah.
And you see that gives you an insight into the mind of Dori and I, and that like we could go back, we could change everything, but we're going to change
nothing. Nothing. Well, you're changing your future because you're buying Apple stock. I'm not even doing that.
Oh yeah. But I don't have faith in the Volkskas Bank that got to write to my little bank book all my transactions and take it to the bank and make sure it matches up.
Yeah, they're going to buy the wrong stock for you. What a shame.
They did not buy me Apple stock, as you can tell, and I'm glad they went under. Quite frankly, quite frankly glad. So
we have quite simple needs on our time traveling adventures. We just want to go back and relive our childhoods, pretty much. Well, you're reliving your life because you do it all the time.
Simple minds with simple needs. Dori, I came across something. I have never seen one of these in my life. It's kind of like I manifested a concept, right? So I'm on a mission. I need to collect all the pop shops on vinyl. I need to get them all. Okay, I've started a thing.
And you're doing it. How many do you have now?
I got a number of them, but there were a lot of pop shops.
There were a lot
of them, right.
Almost as many as Now That's What I Call Music.
Oh, don't even start, because once I start Now That's What I Call Music, then I'm done. And then do I get into Monster hits on cassette? Because Monster hits came out in the 90s. I don't even want to go there.
And high energy?
I've got a few high energies, but I got to go pop shop. I got to get pop shop.
A pop shop is unique. Yeah.
Is unique. And I was going, vinyl, like I'm very minimalistic. I don't like big, bulky things. I don't like wires. I don't like clutter, right? I like very small, simple. And I was like, if only you had a handheld record player, right? That was basically, I mean, what do you need? You just need the arm with the needle. And basically, like, imagine it like a stapler size. And you just put your records in there. Like, Apple could design like imagine Apple. They make goggles. Apple made these stupid bullshit goggles. There goes all my money. You see, there goes. That's gonna. What's ever gonna sink Apple? It's gonna be those goggles. But why didn't they make like this stapler type thing, and it's handheld and it's small? And I don't know because
how is it small? How does the record fit?
So it's the size of half the record. So imagine a record, right? And you just need a thing that slides over the one half, and it's just the needle that basically you're now moving the record plays. The record spins, it spins on the needle. You don't need that massive thing, right? We had it because that's all we could do in the 80s. And I was like, if only something like that existed. Dori, something like that did exist. I did not know about this. Did and does, because they've re-released it. Dori, up until a few weeks ago, I did not know of a thing called the Sound Burger or the Mr. Disc. Oh, have you ever seen such a thing?
Is it as good as a pan burger?
Nowhere near pan burger. Okay, don't eat it. Okay.
What a strange name, though.
That was the name. It was a brand name. It was, I don't know what, it's a portable record player, right? Called the Sound Burger.
Yeah.
On our running order, the link is there. Just give it a click and you'll see what I'm
talking about. I'm on it. I'm looking at the picture.
Right? It's a portable.
I don't understand how this works because the whole thing of a record is if you move it, it's going to jump or scratch or how is it portable? How do you move around with this? I don't understand.
No, well, you don't carry it around. It's not like a Walkman. It's not a Walkman. It's just a more portable record player. So if you're a kid, you can have a record player in your room without taking the whole family record player. So
you still have to put it down on a surface. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, you still put it on a surface.
Yeah, because you said portable. And it says portable, which makes me think I'm walking around with it.
Well, from what you do, and then you put it down, and then you don't move it again because it'll skip. Okay. So good point. And then you plugged headphones into it.
Transportable, not portable.
Transportable. Yeah. Okay, maybe that's better.
Right.
Yes. Right? So you've seen it now. It's probably about this. I mean, it is. It's got to be the size of half a record, right? So that's not big at all. Half a vinyl record. So it was made by Audio-Technica. Audio-Technica make loads, speakers, sound equipment, etc. For its anniversary,
right,
they've re-released it, right? And now, if you click on the other links I sent you, all of these are going to be on that Facebook, that 80 Show SA Facebook page.
Okay,
they're there right now.
Now
it makes sense.
So when I click on the first link, I understand how it works because the picture's better. I see it now.
Yes.
Okay.
So in it, it's like a stapler thing, right? But the needle actually comes out of it, right? And then it plays. So now, obviously, today, it's got Bluetooth. It's got Wi-Fi, and it's awesome, especially the yellow one. There's got to be a yellow one, yellow and black.
Yeah, I see the yellow one. I'm having flashbacks to my yellow Sony Walkman. This looks cool, I have to say. This looks pretty cool.
I really like it. It flips open, the needle comes out. It's space saving, it's compact. It's $200. But
that's not terrible.
It's not terrible considering.
It's not great.
That's kind of what you. It's Audio-Technica though, so because listen, the quality is the needles. That's what the quality of a record player is how good that needle is. Audio-Technica is not a mess around. You can plug it into stuff. I could be buying one of these, Dori. I got to be honest with you.
Okay, but where does one buy one of these?
So it's obviously not selling here. There's got to be an Audio-Technica dealer somewhere in South Africa. Or you can buy it on the Audio-Technica website. So I didn't put this link here, but I did have a link from the Audio-Technica website. Do we want to go through that? Maybe the South African dealer. If you are the South African dealer, get in touch because I think I want a sound burger. If we can't get a pan burger, we've got to get a sound burger.
I like the red one as well. The picture is the red one. I like the yellow, but the red is also very nice.
Yeah. I'm really considering this thing. $200, 4,000 Rand. It's not going to, I might have to sell a He-Man. I might have to sell a vintage boxed He-Man.
Sell a kidney. Don't be ridiculous. Don't sell He-Man. You sell a kidney.
You're right. I've got 4 He-Mans. I've got 2 kidneys. I only need one. Everyone knows you only need one.
Come on.
I mean, really. So that's me buying sound burgers. On that 80s show, we like going back to movies and TV shows from the 80s. And each week we regale you with sometimes it's not even an 80s movie. It's a movie set in the 80s. It's a scene of a movie set in the 80s. It's something that reminds us of the 80s. It's our show, our
It only
rules,
needs
Dori.
a tenuous link to the 80s for us to talk about it.
Yep.
The most tenuous link is okay.
You know what neither of us did when we woke up in the 80s? We didn't go back to our video store and just smell that plastic, the smell of the boxes and the faint smell of weed and the definite smell of someone peeing on the carpet in the video store.
Oh my God.
Maybe
what kind of video store did you go to?
Maybe it was just mine.
Oh my goodness.
Listen,
but
video
yeah, we
stores,
should definitely do that.
Video stores attracted like kids wanted to work at video stores, but a very specific kind of slacker, and love them all to death. All our friends who worked at video stores, you know who you are. You know what you were doing.
I mean, it was the ultimate dream job for like lazy students.
Yeah. Watch movies all day.
I wish I'd worked in a video store. I didn't work in a video store, but I worked in a music store, which was really cool.
Yeah, but music stores, you've got to know, right? So the guys who worked in video stores, some are really good, some were slackers. If you worked in a record store, music store, like you were like a genius when you're a savant, you knew everything. So I think there was a lot of work involved in that.
Yeah. Came naturally to me back then.
Okay, there you go. Right. Let's go to the video store. Let's go to the video store.
We can go to the video store. I don't know if you're going to find what I'm talking about today at the video store, but I'll tell you where you will find what I'm talking about today is YouTube, the virtual video store of our time.
Indeed.
Yes. Do you remember, and you might have seen it, probably not in your childhood because it only showed on TV here in the 2000s, but there was a kiddies show that started in the 80s and ran into the early 90s. And that TV show is still very popular today. Some episodes are on Showmax, but the ones I'm talking about, which are the early ones from that 1988 and 1989, are all on YouTube. And this is really going back and being nostalgic and being very childish this week. I'm totally going back to my childhood. We're talking about a little show called Garfield and Friends.
Loved it.
Hey, how great was that show?
Loved it. Yeah.
Because over the years, they have tried to take a comic strip and make a TV show out of it. And most of them have failed miserably. They have not translated well from the page to the screen, let's say. But I think that Garfield and Friends really did a good job. Like, it was a perfect rendition of the Garfield comic strip.
So I don't know why I thought this was more in the 90s. Was it 89?
It was more in the 90s. So season 1 and 2 was 88 and 89, and then it ran till 94. So it was more in the 90s. And the episodes on Showmax are from the 90s. But I discovered that season 1 and 2 are on YouTube. And they're great. I watched a few. I haven't got through all of them, but I've watched a few. And the point is, Garfield actually started in the 70s as a comic strip. So it's got that whole older kind of vibe to it. It doesn't have a very 90s feel.
Do you know Jim Davies? He regrets, who wrote the Garfield comics, he regrets making Garfield like lasagna because lasagna is so hard to draw. He says he could go back. He wouldn't make him love lasagna because it is a pain in the ass to draw. He wish he made it something easier. Yeah.
Well, he should have realized that the first time he tried to draw it and gone, let me do something else. Let me make him like an ice cream cone. That's easy to draw.
It's like there's a thing about a cat. Who likes cats? Who knows? People don't like cats.
Man.
I'm going to catch on. So,
I loved Garfield so much as a kid. I really did. He was my favorite thing. And the Garfield and Friends, the show, the and Friends part is absolutely skippable. There's like a segment where it's this other cartoon that Jim made called Orson's Farm.
Yeah.
And so in the middle
Yes,
of the
that's
show, there's always this segment of Orson's Farm. Like, it's totally skippable. It's not that great. So you watch the first Garfield segment, you skip Orson's Farm, and then you watch the second Garfield segment. And that's your episode. About 23 minutes each. So fun.
The
So
thing is,
nostalgic.
tell me,
Yeah.
Garfield, is he voiced by Bill Murray or a guy who sounds like Bill Murray?
It's not Bill Murray. No.
But he sounds like him.
He's voiced by a man named Lorenzo Music, who was the original Garfield voice until, Lorenzo Music died in like the 2000s sometime. So he was the voice of Garfield for the longest time. Very unique voice, very recognizable voice. Perfectly fitting voice.
Because he sounds like Bill Murray.
No, he doesn't.
Take
what
a
a cool
listen
name,
back.
Lorenzo Music.
Anyway. I know. Got to be a fake
cool
name. There's no way that's
Maybe.
his real name. There's no way that's his real
check.
name. So, what, there was such a thing. So you say the Garfield comic strip started in the 80s, in the 70s, but Garfield was such a 80s kid thing because there was so much Garfield merchandise, and it's kind of like the first. There was you had the Garfield, you had little toys that you could buy at Cardi's. He was in calendars. There was a collection of, I used to get them an album or a compendium or an annual. It's an annual, that's what it's called, of all the Garfield comic strips.
My kid literally has a Garfield calendar hanging on the wall as we speak.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
they don't go out of style. They don't go out of style. My kid loves Garfield. Absolutely loves Garfield. So
the Garfields that you stuck on your, there was Garfields that you stuck on your back on the cars with the little sticky cups.
The one that would stick out the boot and look like you'd squished the cat into the boot.
The height of 80s comedy. The absolute height.
Honestly.
There was so much, and it was normally at Cardi's. All at Cardi's, just shitloads of Garfield stuff.
Lots of Garfield stuff. So yeah, I mean, just for if you don't know what Garfield is, then I don't know. I mean, we can't talk to you, but it's really fun to just go and watch those episodes, and also because they are short. You can fit in like a couple at a time, or just use it as a filler to take a little break from work. Go and watch like 7 minutes of Garfield. Because you can. It's on YouTube. It's right there. But I was watching episode 1 of season 1 last night. And there was a scene that I thought, oh no, you have to see this because it's really funny. I'm going to set the scene for you, and then I've sent you a clip to play. So basically the scenario is that John wants to enter Garfield into a talent show for animals.
Now, John is Garfield's, if you don't know Garfield, God forbid, John is Garfield's owner.
Yes.
Or Garfield is John's owner, whichever.
Absolutely, Garfield is John's owner. But yes, he's Garfield's human. John is Garfield's human, and he wants to. There's a prize. There's a prize of $1,000 for the best cat act at this the best animal act at this animal talent show. So what happens is, long story, but basically Garfield gets this weird virus that makes him dance the hula every time he hears the word Hawaii. These scenarios, they're brilliant. Like, who would think of that? Every time he hears the word Hawaii, he literally starts dancing the hula. So John's like, this is really cool. We could win a talent show with this. So he takes Garfield to audition for the talent show. And while they're standing in line waiting to audition, there's a parrot that auditions just ahead of them. Right. And the parrot does impressions of famous people. And there was one scene that I thought was really, really funny, and I wanted you to see it because you would really appreciate it. And that's the link that I sent you. Play that for us now. So
before I play this, I think you have opened up a very worrying rabbit hole for me, because on the side, similar, it suggests all these other 80s TV shows and cartoons. I'm probably gonna waste the rest of the day in the sidebar, but let's take a listen to the impressions.
Go ahead, make my cage. I'll put it in the food. I'll put it in the pool. Don't give me a cracker, because I need a cracker.
Well, Dori, you definitely know me.
I know you so well. Of course, I thought of you as soon as I saw that, and I thought it was kind of cute. So yeah,
give me a parrot, Mr. T, any day.
Exactly. If you had a parrot, you would totally teach it to talk like that.
Oh, cousin Louie has a parrot. You don't want to know the things that this parrot says.
I definitely don't.
Well, you do, but you don't. But you do.
So that is my recommendation. Very different to my usual.
Yes. Light-hearted, bit of fun.
Yes.
Don't have to think too much.
Nope.
Much like my movie this week, that I can't believe we've never done this movie before. You're going to say we've done this movie. We've done this genre of movies. We've maybe spoken about these actors. Maybe it's come up and we've never done this movie. But there was definitely a vibe in the 80s that goes, it was definitely a genre. And you're kind of talking war games. You're talking E.T. You're talking Mac and Me, of kids and space adventures, right?
Right. Yes.
It was directed by Joe Dante. Now, Joe Dante was the director of Gremlins. He was also the director of Inner Space and The Burbs, specifically those in
Inner
the 80s.
Space,
Yeah,
great
Inner
movie.
Space,
Mm-hmm.
one of Dori's
Yeah.
favorites. He's done a whole bunch of TV stuff. He's done Tales from the Crypt. He's done Twilight Zone. But those are kind of Gremlins and Inner Space. Those are his main ones. And Gremlins is very important for this movie. It was the first movie for Ethan Hawke and River Phoenix. Right?
Ooh.
Yeah, they were tweens. They were tweens when they did this movie. It was actually Ethan Hawke. Crazy thing I found out while checking out this movie, right? So he was starring role. This was his first movie. His mother didn't want him to seriously do movies. I mean, he gets a starring role in a massive movie directed by Joe Dante. Part of like Steven Spielberg was the producer. It was going to be like a big breakout role. His mother's like, no, I don't want to relocate to LA because of my job. So you can't do movies until you can go to LA by yourself. So his next movie after this was 5 years later, Dead Poets Society. It's like, okay, cool. You got a child star. But maybe she saved him.
Dead Poets Society was his first movie.
No. Maybe his mother saved him from a lot of things, that, particularly River Phoenix. What happened to River Phoenix, you know?
Yes.
So
yes.
The movie is called Explorers. Have you ever seen it or heard of it, Dori?
I don't think I have.
No. Huge flop, bit of a cult thing, but it's a completist thing. Because if you're watching all these type of genre movies, you've got to watch Explorers to complete the set. So
I mean, and if you want to watch all of River's movies or Ethan's movies, you've got to watch it, right?
You got to watch it, right? And like you say, you didn't even know Ethan Hawke had a movie before Dead Poets Society.
No.
Right?
So how bad is it?
No, it's not. It's fantastic. It's actually very good. Oh, look, okay. Let me tell you, right? So Joe Dante, I mean, obviously he's done Gremlins, Steven Spielberg. They're in the right genre. And it's these kids who, you know, obviously in all these movies, kids are geniuses. And River Phoenix's character is quite a bit of a geek, a bit of a nerd, very brainy, dresses like a 50-year-old scientist. And he discovers this thing that he's busy doing an experiment, and he creates this little orb that allows anything that goes into it to fly, right? So Ethan Hawke's character, who's a little bit more rebellious, and there's three boys. The third guy didn't really become a star. And they go, what if we could take this and make a spaceship and go into space? And they're like, brilliant.
That's so likely.
So 80s, right? So they build, so they've got like some little toy thing. They build it into a spaceship, and now they go to space, right? So off they go. They're in space in this makeshift spaceship. They're floating around, and they come into contact with an actual alien spaceship, right? Oh, God, now what's going to happen to these kids? They find these aliens, very goofy-looking industrial light and magic of that era, Jim Henson puppety, not threatening-looking aliens,
oh my
really
God.
silly-looking aliens. And like, oh no, this is terrible, found aliens. The aliens happen to be teenage boys from their planet who've now stolen their parents' spaceship, and now they've gone adventures, right? So they now have a little bit of shenanigans, but this is where the movie goes all over the place, right? Because potentially there's something really clever. But from that point, it just kind of descends into a bit of nothing. So it was one of those movies where they bring in Joe Dante, got a lot of money behind it, the movie, and they're now pushing to get the movie out for the kind of like 4th of July weekend, that kind of like key weekend in the 80s in the States where July is going to make or break your movie.
Yes, that summer season, yes.
That's it, right? So the movie that just so happened to open a week before them was Back to the Future, which like...
I mean,
after a week, you know, so maybe if you maybe even if you opened the same day as Back to the Future, you had a slight chance. Maybe people were Back to the Future, you couldn't get in, you go, watch this. After a week, everyone's like, you have got to watch Back to the Future. So nobody's watching this.
Yeah. And people are watching it multiple times.
Multiple times, right? They also happen to release on the date of, on the Saturday or that weekend, is Live Aid. So like, kids, we're not going to movies. We're watching Live Aid. So forget about it. So that kind of like key opening, they just completely botched it. And then on top of it, the movie was a mess because they were compromising. They were pushing things. They were making multiple edits. They were changing things just to get the movie done in time. It was a big like narrative mess. Over the years, there's been multiple recuts of it. Joe Dante put out his like director's cut. But even with that, he wasn't able to shoot certain things. And so a lot of like potentially a really good movie kind of like didn't really become anything. It's very interesting because obviously River Phoenix, and I have to tell you something, Dori. I was like recently weeks old when, and I'm talking in the past month, that I discovered that Leaf Phoenix and Joaquin Phoenix are the same person.
No. You just forgotten, because when I did Parenthood the movie on this show, I pointed that out.
Oh, well.
So you just forgot. Or you don't listen to me, which is more likely. You don't listen to me.
No, Dori, I forget. I forget things. You forget. So well, we did.
Our brains are old. We know.
They are old. Okay, so anyway, so especially the thing with River Phoenix, right? So one of the things that happened is, so River Phoenix didn't like his character because he was like, no, I don't want to be the nerd. I don't want to be the geek. I want to be, and he auditioned for the main character, but they just felt he didn't have enough presence. They're like, no, you're not strong enough. Got this other kid, Ethan, going to be great. So he's going to get the main character. And River Phoenix was like, but I grew up in a hippie commune in South America. I can't be a geek. I don't know what it is, right? My name's River. My brother's Leaf. You know, I can't be. And the movie's filled with a lot of pop culture references, right? And River Phoenix kept mispronouncing things because he didn't know what anyone was talking about.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Just didn't get it because it's like, I don't know. What do you mean, right? What is going on?
He's like, we had kids at school. When I was at school, we had these kids who were Quakers.
Oh, right.
Which are kind of like South African Amish. Well, I mean, I think you get Quakers all over the world, but like they were the Amish that we had. And so they weren't allowed to watch TV. When we did prayer, like when we did hymns in assembly, they had to leave the room. They weren't allowed to be in the room when we did hymns for some reason, which I don't understand. But so they didn't have TV. They didn't have access to any pop culture. And I mean, they were just obviously shamed, like really like kind of kept to themselves and didn't really have any friends because they knew nothing. You couldn't talk to them about anything. It's like that. That was River Phoenix and his family. That was them.
That was River Phoenix and his family. And one of the pop culture references that I really like is because it creates this shared universe. So there's this concept of the Spielberg verse, that all these kind of movies, E.T., even Gremlins, all of them, they're all set in the same place, right? There's that concept.
Yeah.
And okay. And the biggest shout out to this, to that is that at one point in this movie, there's a newspaper headline that says Kingston Falls riots still unexplained. Okay. Now, Kingston Falls was the town where Gremlins took place. And obviously the Gremlins destroyed the town at the end of it. So, because, okay, these are all the same place. Fun fact, the town where Gremlins took place is the same set as Back to the Future. If you watch Gremlins, right, the opening scene, it's Hill Valley. That main center court in Hill Valley, same place, the same set. They use the same set.
Huh.
Factoid.
Well, you know, interesting factoid. Yes. So that's like all the John Hughes movies were set in the same Chicago town. Same thing.
Yes. Yeah. The Hughes-verse, same thing. People love these universes because we love these. We love universes. We love them. And the kids in this movie, explorers, they loved universes. They went to explore space. Ethan Hawke, who knows what happened to him? Never heard of him again. River Phoenix then pops up the next year in Stand By Me. It's kind of interesting to wonder what River Phoenix's career would have been like. Like, would he have gone Johnny Depp-ish, or would he have gone Joaquin Phoenix. So like, where would he have ended up?
Yeah.
Because he was superstar. Without River, would we have got Joaquin? So who knows? Or with River, would we have got Joaquin?
I know. Who knows? Who knows indeed. So, Paulo,
These
how did
things
you
go.
discover this movie, and where could we potentially find it?
So it's on all the streaming platforms. You'll find it if you want to hire it. It's one of those where it's like 20 Rand, it's very cheap. And it's on a couple of streaming platforms as well if you go looking, especially internationally. I always knew about it. Because it's so similar of kids space, that type of thing. I'm sure I've seen it before. I'm sure we've spoken about it. I'm sure we've covered it, but it's just that genre was very popular at the time. We're at the back of Star Wars, space travel was huge, kind of, kids were just enamored by space and kind of go, well, if I'm going to make a family movies all over the place and I'll make it in space, kids going to space, I got a hit. So that's what it was a hit. Man, I thought I'd just done it before. So that's a movie, Explorers. Not a bad movie.
I mean,
it's not a bad.
I'm going to possibly look for some clips on it or some. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to watch the whole thing, but because I've never heard of it, I kind of want to see. I want to see the aliens. I want to see all the things that you've just described.
Yeah, it's cool. It's charming. Yeah. It's kind of like Goonies in space without a Cyndi Lauper song. I think it's.
Oh, there you go.
That's what you say. I'm glad that you brought up John Hughes, because Matthew Broderick was on a podcast this week, the Happened in Hollywood podcast, and by the sounds of it, Ferris Bueller almost took all the days off because John Hughes and Matthew Broderick did not like each other. They used to butt heads. Oh, by the way, did you know that this week was the day Ferris Bueller took off, 5th of June?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So they've worked it out that because when they go to the Chicago Cubs game, when they go to the baseball game, and that game, because it was actually shot at a live game, that game and the result, they've traced it back. It goes, it was June 5th. That's the day he took off. So June 5th, Ferris Bueller Day. Ferris Bueller Day is actually that. So he was on the Happen in Hollywood podcast, and he says, yes, they used to butt heads. He said he recalls spending hours in Hughes' swimming pool at the time of filming, smoking cigarettes and eating potato chips, and then discussing the role that shot him to superstardom. He says when they did a costume test early on, obviously now to walk around town was him and Alan Ruck and Jennifer Grey costume test, trying to figure out. John Hughes didn't like Matthew Broderick. He said, you're just quite boring. There's nothing to you. I don't think it's going to work. You've got no charisma. And that kind of just set them off on a bad path.
Ooh. I mean, I don't know if I entirely disagree with John. For me, Matthew Broderick he's all right. I mean, look, it's a great movie and he's good in the role.
Yeah.
But he's okay.
He said to
surely
him,
Hughes cast him in the first place. So whose fault is it?
He said to him, I'm not used to having somebody be so dead. Of which Broderick was like, what? He said, well, then go get somebody you like. If I'm not right for you, get somebody you like.
I mean, what else can you say? What else can you say to that?
And then he said John Hughes just wouldn't direct him anymore. He just wouldn't give him direction. He just let him do what he wanted. He wouldn't talk to him, to the point where we go, okay, can you give me something now? Because I can't do this without you telling me what's going on. So that was very uneasy.
Oh, sounds like a difficult. But I'm glad. I mean, but the movie was a huge hit, so it worked out in the end for both of them, actually.
It did. He says that John Hughes wasn't this loosey-goosey, light-hearted guy. Those are his words. That everyone kind of paints him as. He was very serious, but he didn't hold a grudge. And of course, Ferris Bueller, still talking about it years later, still Matthew Broderick's most famous role, if you don't want to count, by far. And we will post this article up. It Happened in Hollywood. The podcast is on that link. That link will be on that 80 Show SA Facebook page. So you'll find that.
Is it worth listening to? Is it interesting in general?
It is quite cool. Yeah. I mean, but you gotta love these things when they talk about the background stuff, Hollywood, how movies get made, 80s, the superstar.
Well, that's why I enjoy Smartless. I mean, I enjoy Smartless because it's hilarious and I love the host, but also that whole behind the scenes access that you get to things is cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm surprised that he wasn't, when I saw Matthew Broderick podcast pop up, I was like, oh, it's definitely Smartless. But no, it was happened in Hollywood. Another thing happened in Hollywood this week. We threw away the name earlier, is Big, the movie Big, 35-year anniversary this year.
Sure.
The release of it. So the kid who played the main kid from Big, because obviously Tom Hanks was in it, but there was the kid that he was and then became Tom Hanks. Kid called David Moscow. Okay, so was the name of the kids. Dori, do you remember that kid in your mind's eye? Or maybe just give him a quick Google.
No. I remember exactly what he looked like.
Average 80s looking kid, nothing spectacular.
Yeah. Looked like a garbage pail
handsome kid. That's it. Bit of a garbage pail, Alfred E. Newman type
freckles,
vibe.
like
that's
brown
it.
hair. Yeah.
Quite a good looking guy. Not a bad looking guy.
I don't know if I want to know where this is going.
Not superstar looking, but quite a good looking guy. I had a quick moment. I wondered if he's the guy from Glee, but it's not. He looks like the guy from Glee. Okay. Anyway, he's been in the press this week. Obviously, the teacher, the main teacher from Glee. Yeah. But it's not him. Anyway, surprisingly, he's been in the press this week saying, look, Big wouldn't be made today. We wouldn't get away with a lot of the kind of, in jokes and things that we had back then, because it was kind of not great to have. Well, this is the thing, right? So obviously Tom Hanks now goes into a man's body, but he's still a kid. And then the main character, the main love interest, is now trying to have sex with him.
Yes.
And it's kind of
I remember that scene very well.
Right?
Okay, but I get to be on top.
It's kind of not great. But
I mean, it's funny, but I suppose today it would just never happen.
Yeah, I don't know. So
brings up issues of consent and awkwardness and all those things.
Yeah, it's leaving the socks on. It's just a weird thing. But in this, he says, the way you do it today is it'd be body switching, right? So that you've kind of got an adult and a dad, and they switch actual literal bodies. But then he goes, then you're just remaking vice versa, or like father, like son. It
was like Freaky Friday. Freaky Friday, which actually was from the 70s, I think, which was the original.
Yes. And then they remade. But God, they made so many vice versa, like father, like son, Big.
I loved those movies, though.
Also,
I love that whole concept.
Yeah. So they tried it in different ways. And then it brought me on to, obviously, a cracked article, 35 factoids about Big on its 35th birthday. But there's too many and we don't have enough time. So let me just find...
No,
I know. I should...
Okay, give me like the top 5. Give me the top 5.
Let me give you the top 5. Okay, let's do that. Let me scroll down. Thanks to cracked.com. So the love interest we spoke to about earlier, her name was Anne Perkins? What I think was Anne? No, Anne Perkins.
Elizabeth Perkins.
Elizabeth Perkins. Thank you. Anne Perkins from Parks and Rec. She had a huge crush on Tom Hanks at the time. So she said, it was
Did Tom Hanks know this?
With him. She said, he did not know this. Won't surprise you to know that a special floor piano was built just for the movie.
Love that piano.
Wanted
that piano in my home.
The director was worried that Tom Hanks wouldn't overplay his part. He said, obviously, you have to act like a 12-year-old, and he was a bit worried Tom Hanks would be like a bit too serious for it. But of course, that was not to be worried. They had the set was like an actual holiday camp because there's just the kid actors had to be relaxed. So they just had basketball hoops, baseball cards, obviously garbage pail kids. They do Nerf balls. Just made like a real fun.
Was it like his apartment that he eventually was living in? His big loft apartment.
I imagine
that was
cool. That was inspiration.
Yeah.
Imagine that was inspiration. And then number one factoid, quite boring, is that years later they bought the Zoltar machine. Remember that's the machine that actually granted him the wish.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks did a skit with that on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. That's not that really.
I'm going to throw in one more that I see here. John Travolta wanted to play adult Josh, it would not have been the same movie.
John Travolta. Oh, John Travolta was in that weird. He was in his career lull already.
I mean, this movie is it is Tom Hanks. It just is him.
I just want to go watch like Father Like Son now. All three of those came out in the same movie in the same year.
I loved like Father Like Son, but now Kirk Cameron's like insane now, so I kind of just.
Is he still insane, or did he just have a bad day? He's still nuts, right?
No, he's like all Jesus-y and mad and.
Well, that doesn't make him insane. It's just like what you say.
No, but he's like bad. He's bad. He's bad Jesus-y. He's not good Jesus-y. He's bad Jesus-y.
Yeah.
As in, like, oh, these things are evil, and you should not do them, and you should not be gay, and you should not be this, and you should not be that. That kind of Jesus-y.
Okay. All right. No.
Yeah.
Then don't be that guy. Don't be that guy.
Yeah, but I'll still watch Black Father Like Son again just for the nostalgia, I guess.
Maybe we should both watch it ahead of next week and then talk about it.
Oh, dude, don't give me homework because I'm not going to be able to comply.
Yeah,
but I tell you what, I'll let you know when I watch it, and then we can talk about it.
Okay, we'll
do
that.
I'll make an effort. I will make an effort. I will. Just don't give me a deadline. That's all. No deadline, please.
This has been That 80 Show. Everything we spoke about can be found That 80 Show essay on Facebook page. Dori and I woke up in the 80s, didn't change a goddamn thing about the world, used it just for our own benefit, including buying Apple stocks. Maybe we would have bought a Soundburger. Maybe we could have sold the Soundburger to Apple. That would have revolutionized everything. Garfield's in there. We got Ethan Hawke and River Phoenix in there. Mention of the Gremlins and Matthew Broderick, Tom Hanks, John Travolta, so many celebrity mentions.
We name dropped like pros today.
Your favorite thing you learned in today's show, Dori?
Oh, dude, come on. It has to be the Soundburger. Come on. What else can it be?
Is the Soundburger I'm buying. I'm buying one. I'm done. I've convinced myself.
It's pretty cool.
Thanks for joining me, Dori. Okay, bye.
Bye.